If you want more for yourself, you want to build a life you love, the one you dream about, when settling for good enough just isn't good enough anymore, and you want to start actually living in a way that feels more aligned with what you actually want for yourself, it's hard. There's limiting beliefs, maybe a lack of motivation, or just struggling with even knowing what steps you should take. It's a lot to not feel overwhelmed with. So in this video, I want to share with you the single biggest cheat code to creating massive life leaps, one that cost me $20,000 to learn and years that I could have been thriving if I knew this sooner. In the past, I've worked with coaches and mentors before for business growth, personal growth, and my mindset. And while every one of these experiences taught me something super valuable and beneficial in their own right, there was one specific coach that cost me $20,000 to work with, and it was that investment with her that gave me a realization that was so powerful. It fundamentally changed how I approach growth in every area of my life. That realization is really simple but really profound. Being in the room is the most important thing. When I say being in the room, I'm talking about the power of putting yourself in a space with people who have already achieved the goals you aspire to reach. These are the people who are where you want to be and have done what you want to do. I know that sounds obvious, doesn't it? Advice from friends, family, books, or even YouTube videos like this one can be so helpful and enlightening, but nothing will push you forward faster than consistently being around people who are already living the life you envision for yourself. Nothing even comes close. The value of getting in the room isn't necessarily in the direct lessons you're taught though, it's in the things you catch just by being around these people. It's about what's caught, not taught. Of course, this coach I'm talking about taught me a lot of practical and strategic steps, all kinds of the doing things. But the real transformation came from simply being in her presence, seeing how she thinks and watching how she approached her work and life, and absorbing the energy that radiates from people who know what they want and go after it relentlessly. This is where the magic happens, in the subtle, almost invisible lessons that are passed down through proximity. Keep in mind, proximity is not necessarily in reference to location. It can literally be online through Zoom calls and messaging. The people you surround yourself with can literally make or break you. They shape how you see the world, how you see yourself, and even what you believe is possible. If you're around people who are constantly questioning their worth, playing it safe, or doubting every move they make, that energy seeps into you. It becomes harder to believe in yourself when those around you don't. But then on the flip side, if you're surrounded by people who have taken the leap, who push their limits, who pursue growth, that belief starts to become your reality. The principle of you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with works in both directions. It can be what propels you, or it can be what holds you back. This isn't just about manifesting or thinking positively or anything like that. It's about seeing real, tangible proof that what you want for yourself is possible. It's there in front of you. Being in a room with people, either physically or virtually, who are doing it, who are living it, transforms the way you think about what's possible for you. It's literally like having a cheat code to your personal growth. You're essentially fast-tracking your progress, and it moves you forward in ways you simply wouldn't achieve alone. When you're in proximity to the success you want, it affects you. You start to adopt the mindset, energy, and even routines of the people around you. You don't even have to think about it, it just happens. It's this natural thing that occurs, you just have to let it. I guess one of the most transformative aspects of being in the room is how it challenges your limiting beliefs. We all have these hidden scripts playing in the back of our minds, telling us things like, I'm not good enough, that's too big for me, or people like me don't achieve things like that. But when you're in a space with people who have already achieved those things, those limiting beliefs start to lose their grip. They don't have a hold of you like they used to. It becomes harder to cling to the idea that you can't do it when you're sitting right beside someone who's done exactly that. Being in the room shows you that the limits you place on yourself are often just that. Limits you placed on yourself, and not reality. They're beliefs you've constructed, often unconsciously, that hold you back from reaching your true potential. By being around people who have broken through the same barriers, you realize that you can do it as well. It becomes so clear that what you are chasing isn't just for this select lucky few, but it's literally accessible to you. So much of personal growth doesn't come from direct instruction, the being taught stuff. A lot of it is in the subtle things you catch by observing how people handle challenges, setbacks, and opportunities. And I guess overall how people hold themselves. When you're in the room with people who have already climbed the mountain you're staring up at, You get to witness firsthand how they approach problems and the type of solutions they come up with. You see their habits, routines, and most importantly, their mindset. They don't have to sit you down and teach you these things. By watching them in action, you absorb their way of thinking, and over time, it starts to become part of your own approach. Let's be real, most of us have probably spent hours reading books, listening to podcasts, or watching videos on morning routines or how to manifest your dream life. And while there's a lot of value in learning from things like this, there's nothing quite like learning from being in the same room with the people who are actually doing it. You learn not just what they say, but how they say it, what they prioritize and what they ignore. And sometimes it's in the little details that end up making the biggest difference in your journey. There's another incredible benefit to getting in the room, and that's accountability. When you're surrounded by people who are just as excited for your growth as you are, there's a level of responsibility you feel to step up your game. It's like being on a high-performing sports team. Everyone's pushing themselves and you're driven to match that energy. You're encouraged to set higher standards for yourself, to follow through on your goals, and to avoid making excuses because you're surrounded by people who are actively pursuing their dreams and creating the life they want for themselves, not waiting around for it to happen. This creates an environment where you don't just want to thrive, you feel a strong need to. This accountability isn't about others calling you out or judging you, it's about feeling that responsibility to yourself, to show up and do what you set out for yourself. And when you're in the right room filled with people on a similar journey, that shared accountability is one of the most powerful motivators out there. It keeps you on track even when things get tough because you know you're not alone. The journey becomes more manageable and even more exciting because you're part of a community that understands the struggles and celebrates the wins. Being in the room also gives you access to something invaluable: immediate feedback. Instead of going it alone, making mistakes, and then spending time trying to figure out what went wrong, you can learn from experiences of others in real time. It means you can avoid so many mistakes. Feedback from people who have already walked the path you're on is gold. It's like having a roadmap that tells you where all the potholes and dead ends are. It's one thing to get advice from someone who's never been where you're trying to go or done what you're trying to do, but it's an entirely different thing to get an input from someone who's achieved what you're striving for. They understand the difficulties you're facing because they face them too. They've been there and done it, so this makes your journey so much smoother and enjoyable. Success leaves clues, and these clues are often embodied in the daily habits and routines of high achievers. When you're in the room, you get to witness these habits firsthand. You get to see how they structure their day, how they balance everything, how they manage their energy. These small details may not seem like much on their own, but when combined, they form this blueprint for building a life that's aligned to what you want. Most of us try to piece together success habits from books, courses, or random advice from YouTube videos, but being in the room allows you to see the real thing. You're no longer trying to imagine what a woman who's truly living her dream life looks like. You're observing it in action. And it's in this observation that you get to pick up strategies that you can apply to your own life. Being completely transparent, this isn't some sales pitch to work with me or join some exclusive mastermind or anything like that. This is simply woman to woman, friend to friend. I genuinely want you to win and start creating a life you love instead of waiting for it to happen. So if you want to truly elevate yourself, you have to make investments that pull you from one level to the next. There's simply no faster, more effective way to grow than putting yourself in the right rooms with the right people. Imagine you are wanting to cook some super complicated and difficult meal. You can either do it without the recipe and no one there with you completely winging it, or you can do it with a detailed recipe in front of you and with Gordon Ramsay next to you showing you every step of the way. How to chop correctly, what ingredients to use, how hot to have the oven. This is the difference between trying to create a life you love, your dream life completely on your own, compared to when you are in the room. I understand the hesitation, the resistance that comes with investing in yourself. I get it because I felt it too. For the longest time, I tried to figure everything out on my own. I thought I didn't need anyone else's help, that I could just figure out everything on my own. But looking back, I can see that a huge part of that mindset was driven by my ego. I didn't want to feel out of place and I didn't want to admit that I needed help. But here's the reality. You might eventually figure things out on your own, but it will take you 10 times longer and you'll leave so much growth on the table by trying to go it alone. And that's the question I want you to ask yourself right now. Have you figured it out on your own yet? Have you achieved the thing you're aiming for? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to consider stepping into the room. I really hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you on the next one. Love you.